In today's video, I'm going to break down 10 celebrity autopsies that really stand out from the rest. Each comes with their own unique mystery or coincidence, from people talking to someone who wasn't really there, to children dying in an eerily similar fashion to their parents. This video will have detailed depictions of death from vehicle crashes to cardiac events. My content may be upsetting to some, viewer discretion advised. When Sam Kinison was struck by a drunk driver on the freeway, he had witnesses and possibly even himself fooled. He experienced a medical phenomenon known as a lucid interval, where people appear to be physically fine despite enduring fatal injuries. During this lucid interval, he appeared to have a conversation with someone who wasn't visible to anybody else on scene. It appeared that this person was breaking some difficult news to him. Sam Kinison was a Pentecostal preacher turned comedian who performed on SNL, sitcoms, and late-night TV. I remember him most as Al Bundy's guardian angel on Married with Children. On April 10, 1992, Sam and his wife were on the highway in California in their Pontiac Trans Am when they were struck head-on by a 17-year-old in a pickup truck. The driver was intoxicated and drifted over the center line. Sam's wife sustained survivable injuries, but the damage was catastrophic for him. His last words are some of the most haunting. Immediately following the wreck, Sam emerged from his car exhibiting only minor injuries on his face. He sat down on the side of the road where he began a rapid decline. Witnesses watched Sam appear to have a frantic conversation with somebody who wasn't there. He said, "I don't want to die, I don't want to die," followed with, "But why?" And finally, okay. His entire body relaxed and he soon slipped away. His autopsy revealed that the serious damage was all internal. There was about 200 cc's of blood pooled in his abdominal cavity. This was caused by several severe tears in his small bowel, as well as a thoracic aortic dissection. This is a tear in the largest artery that extends from the heart into the abdomen. This type of injury carries a very high mortality rate. Additionally, he sustained an atlanto-occipital dislocation, which is a dislocation of the cervical spine where it meets the base of the head. Sam experienced a brief and misleading lucid interval, which is a phenomenon sometimes seen in traumatic accidents. Shortly after, he died from blood loss. When Whitney Houston died face down in a bathtub, the media went wild with speculation. When it was revealed that her drowning was triggered by natural causes, many people simply couldn't fathom how it could have happened. Then, just a few short years later, her daughter died in a similar fashion. On February 11, 2012, the day before the Grammys, Whitney Houston was found unresponsive, face down in a bathtub inside of the Beverly Hills Hotel. She'd been complaining of a sore throat while preparing to attend the award show. The examination. There's a trail of dried blood coming from her nostrils. There's a perforation to her nasal septum, meaning a hole. There is a surface cut to her upper lip and various abrasions all over her body. There are yellow-brown bruises on her forehead, eyebrows, chest, and nostrils that occurred near death. There is fluid present in both pleural cavities of her lungs, likely caused by aspirating bathwater while actively drowning. There's fluid in her pericardial sac, which contains her heart. She has a 60% blockage of her coronary artery due to buildup of plaque over time. There's a frothy substance found in her upper respiratory tract. Her stomach is distended and filled with water, as well as partially digested food. There's a scald burn to her back. According to toxicology, there is a small amount of Benadryl as well as other sedatives in her system. Her death is ruled as an accidental drowning, but cites heart disease and drug use as contributing factors. This is likely what happened. Whitney ran herself a bath because she wasn't feeling well. While getting ready to get in, she was struck with dizziness or lost consciousness, causing her to fall face first into the tub. She was unable to get herself out of the water, so she died from drowning. This tale is told by her external injuries. She may have been suffering a cardiac event or was possibly struck with a sudden arrhythmia or erratic heart rate, which could have been the cause of the fall. Heart issues can present as throat pain, especially in women, and her heart was very sick. It's unclear whether or not she felt herself drowning, but my hope is that she was too incapacitated at that point to be aware. Bobbi Kristina Brown was a 22-year-old reality star, singer, and daughter of Whitney Houston. She was only beginning to realize her full dreams when she died in an eerily similar way to her mother. Much like Whitney's, Bobbi's death left many unanswered questions. Nick Gordon, her fiancé, who was also raised by Bobbi's parents from the age of 12, was found civilly liable for her death, yet investigators couldn't find enough evidence to support foul play. On January 31, 2015, Bobbi was found unresponsive, yet breathing, face down in a tub filled with water. Nick Gordon and his friend made the discovery. She was rushed to the hospital and induced in a coma, but she never woke up. She died 6 months later in hospice care. Her examination revealed sporadic bruising and healed scars on her arms, legs, head, neck, and torso. She was also missing several teeth. It was obvious that she had previously endured serious injury. She was involved in a motor vehicle accident prior to her death, but there was also an alleged history of abuse in her relationship. There were no signs of recent head trauma, but there was cerebral atrophy, meaning areas of the brain had shrunk or cells were lost. Her lower lung lobes were congested with pooling of blood. Her toxicology report detected a combination of morphine, a benzodiazepine which is sedating, and a substance that starts with a C that I cannot say. Her cause of death was lobar pneumonia caused by being immersed in water, as well as hypoxic brain injury, meaning her brain could not receive enough oxygen, but the manner remains undetermined. That means that the coroner still cannot decide whether this was an accident or homicide. When Bob Saget was found dead, tucked into his bed in his hotel room with massive bruising, it didn't take long for conspiracy theories to run wild. We know his cause of death, but the mystery of what led to it remains unsolved. When we first learned of the legendary comedian's death in January, we were led to believe that he died peacefully in his sleep. Upon first glance, it did appear that way. He was tucked in his bed in his Ritz-Carlton hotel room. When found by hotel security, there were no obvious signs of foul play like blood spatter or signs of a struggle. His left arm was across his chest and right arm resting on the bed. His examination told a different story entirely. It didn't take long for media outlets to add creative flair to their headlines. His skull was fractured in 3 separate areas, in the back base of his skull, the right side not far from his ear, and the front. In addition, he had hemorrhaging or bleeding in his brain that was widespread. It was also confirmed that he was suffering from COVID-19, but it's unlikely to have played a role. These fractures are more than just a bump to the noggin. These aren't the kind of injuries that could be mistaken as minor. However, head trauma can cause some wacky things. People can suffer from amnesia, confusion, or even signs of psychosis. I don't believe he would have consciously ignored such an injury, but he may not have been in a cognizant state when he went to bed. Also, Bob suffered from tall people problems. I know these struggles. If he grew dizzy and smashed his head on the floor, it's a much longer way to fall. I have little doubt that the back of his head experienced the trauma. Skull bones can break in strange patterns. They can crackle and fracture even in places free from direct trauma. In fact, a hard enough hit to the back of the head can cause nose fractures and black eyes. These fractures absolutely could have been a result of an accident, and there's really nothing here indicating foul play. For decades, we were only told Kurt Cobain's cause of death with zero evidence to back it up. Over the years, many theories have emerged involving potential nefarious players. Finally, after all of this time, we have his autopsy report, which gives us a loose timeline of events. As I'm sure we all know, Kurt Cobain was the frontman, singer, songwriter, and guitarist for the band Nirvana. Cobain was outspoken about his struggles with mental health and addiction, often incorporating it into his songs, but he also struggled with health issues. He was afflicted by chronic bronchitis and debilitating stomach pains, which many believe that he self-medicated. On March 31, 1994, he fled from a rehab facility after just 3 days and took a cab to a gun shop in Seattle where, according to a receipt, he purchased shotgun shells. On April 8th, an electrician meant to install security lighting found what he believed to be a sleeping Cobain in a studio attached to his house. On closer inspection, he saw blood coming from his ears. Kurt Cobain was dead at just 27. His external exam revealed numerous needle puncture marks with associated bruising and an entrance wound in the front roof of his mouth that measures 3/4 by 1 1/4 inch and is an oval shape. It's accompanied by several lacerations, some with tissue hanging and markings of gunpowder and soot. The lacerations are likely a result of gases leaving the barrel with strong force, which happens in close contact wounds. The internal exam revealed that the path of the bullet was upwards, front to back, and slightly left to right. His skull sustained several comminuted fractures, meaning broken in multiple places in several regions, including the orbital bones. His brain was transected by the bullet, meaning severed, with softening of surrounding tissue as well as presence of massive hemorrhaging and necrosis, meaning cell death. The blood vessels at the base of his brain were also severed. The lack of blood on scene is due to the fact that the entrance wound was inside of his mouth and the bullet settled in his head, meaning there was no exit wound. His toxicology detected 1.52 milligrams per liter of morphine, which is 3 times greater than the typical fatal level. His tolerance must have been high because the gunshot wound killed him before it ever could. So many people have the wrong idea of James Dean's death. His reputation from the roles that he portrayed has largely overshadowed the truth. His death was not his fault and involved serious negligence from first responders. James Dean was a talented young actor, heartthrob, and icon. Today he is most well known for his starring role in Rebel Without a Cause. That title seems to sum up his reputation well. His untimely death came with some tragic twists. He was known to partake in street races in his Porsche Spider, and he received a speeding ticket hours before his deadly crash, but when it occurred, he was driving at the speed limit. It wasn't his fault. Another driver collided with him head-on, who only endured minor injuries. Dean ended up trapped in his twisted-up, crushed Porsche. The collision caused severe internal injuries like multiple hemorrhages. His jaw was fractured in several places and cervical vertebrae in his neck broken. He was pulled out with use of a crowbar. He was bloody and unresponsive but breathing. First responders failed to use a brace to stabilize his neck. Then, while en route to the hospital, the ambulance was involved in an accident. Sadly, this was the nail in Dean's coffin. It's impossible to say if he would have recovered, but after that second crash, there was no chance. There was nothing to stabilize his already broken neck. He was dead on arrival at the hospital. His body was covered in contusions and lacerations. He lost blood internally. His limbs appeared mangled, but it was his broken neck that caused his death. When infomercial sensation Billy Mays died, the timing was odd. He had just been interviewed on the news after being on board a plane that experienced a terrifying incident. This incident caused several injuries to the passengers on board, which left the question of whether or not his death was related. If you've ever struggled with insomnia, then you've heard and seen Billy Mays. Was it his hype? His voice? Whatever it was, his Orange Glow and OxyClean infomercials earned Billy a spot in America's heart. So much so that he ended up in popular culture with an animated cameo on South Park. His death had strange timing. On June 27, 2009, he was on board a commercial plane when a tire blew at landing. This caused calamity on board and damaged luggage compartments. Billy suffered a mean blow to the head but seemed to recover quickly. Afterwards, he gave an interview where he appeared in good spirits. He headed home and eventually went to sleep, but sadly that was it for Billy. His wife found him unresponsive the following morning, and he was pronounced dead a short while later. Media speculated that his head wound was to blame. His examination didn't reveal serious trauma to his head. Some brain vessels were congested, and a cyst was present that was likely asymptomatic. His airways were clear with a little froth in the tube that connects to the trachea. His lungs were congested. His aorta artery and coronary artery had some plaque buildup with calcification, and his heart and liver were enlarged. Toxicology found a byproduct of indicating it was used days before, as well as therapeutic levels of 3 pain medications and 2 anti-anxiety medications. His cause of death was initially inconclusive, but was later determined to be heart disease. His first autopsy cited that coke was likely a contributing factor, and the second one said it likely was not. The plane incident was a bad coincidence. Father and son Bruce and Brandon Lee both suffered deaths linked to their high-risk jobs in the movie industry. Though Bruce Lee's death has largely remained a mystery, it is speculated that it could be related to his performing of dangerous stunts. Brandon Lee's death, however, has been solved and did in fact take place on a movie set. Well, this one is mysterious with a capital M. To this day, we still don't know exactly what went wrong. Bruce Lee identified as a martial artist first, an actor second. He dedicated his life to training, so his action-packed fight scenes may have been choreographed, but he was really performing those mesmerizing moves. On May 10, 1973, Lee buckled to the ground after complaining of headaches for several days. He began seizing and was rushed to Hong Kong Baptist Hospital. Doctors found that he had cerebral edema, or swelling and fluid in his brain. He was treated, improved, and discharged. Tragically, only 10 days later, he died. Again, one evening, he complained of a headache, and a friend gave him a painkiller that contained aspirin and a sedative. He took a nap and never woke up. His autopsy found him to not only be in great shape, but also to be completely healthy with one exception. His brain was severely swollen, so much so that it weighed 13% more than average. His toxicology report only found that one painkiller in his system. That was it. There were no further clues, no signs of infection or trauma. The coroner ended up deciding that Lee had a deadly allergic reaction to the drug, which exhibited in a rare form, brain swelling. But I'm skeptical since he had a similar episode days prior. Over the years, countless experts have tried their hand at solving this tragic puzzle, but they all seem to disagree. We still have absolutely no tangible idea of what led to such severe cerebral swelling, which obviously contributed largely to his death. He was only 32 years old. Just like his father Bruce, Brandon also suffered an eerie and early freak death. I've watched the movie The Crow easily 30 times, it's one of my faves, but it was also Brandon's biggest break yet and the very thing that killed him. The day was March 31st, 1993, and it was near the end of production. Brandon was shooting the scene where he walks in on his fiancée being beaten and is shot by her assailants. The gun was a Smith & Wesson .44 Magnum. It was previously loaded with dummy rounds made from live cartridges that still contain their primer, the part of the round that contains a trace amount of explosives that ignites the powder. At some point, the gun had been fired prior to the shoot, but there was no powder to ignite. However, the force separated the bullet from its casing where it became stuck in the barrel. During the shoot, the gun was never checked and was reloaded with blank rounds that contained a powder charge. So when shot, that lodged bullet flew out with almost the same velocity of a live bullet striking Brandon Lee in the gut. He was rushed to the nearest hospital for emergency surgery, but it wasn't enough. He was pronounced dead. His autopsy revealed an entrance wound just below and to the left of his belly button, with a long vertical wound from his middle chest down to his pelvic region from the surgical cut. He had signs of severe internal hemorrhage in the left quadrant of his abdomen with little blood present, likely because it was suctioned out while in surgery. His cause of death was ruled an accidental gun discharge to the abdomen that resulted in severe blood loss. Post-mortem, the film was still released, and the remaining scenes were shot by stunt doubles. Brandon did a phenomenal job in that film. Cameron Boyce was found dead at the young age of 20 after going to sleep and never waking up. His initial autopsy was inconclusive, so the coroner had to solve the mystery by piecing together evidence from his medical history. Cameron Boyce was a popular child star who began in Disney programs, but was on the precipice of a huge career. He was also a humanitarian. Shockingly, on a warm July evening in 2019, he went to sleep and never woke up. He was only 20. In the days following his death, fans were heartbroken and confused, but this mystery didn't gain clarity even after his autopsy was performed. It's rare for an autopsy to be completely inconclusive. Sometimes the examination itself doesn't yield answers, but a toxicology report often does, and that wasn't the case here. At first glance, his body was that of a fit and healthy individual. His organs were examined one by one, and still everything was in good shape. There weren't any signs of organ failure, no pooling mucus in airways to indicate respiratory failure. This exam was an anomaly, so the coroner really had to brainstorm. It was known that Cameron suffered from a seizure disorder. Samples of his blood were tested every which way, and that is when the puzzle began coming together. Blood tests like measuring glucose, potassium, and creatine levels are all used in a clinical setting to look for signs of a recent seizure episode, and his levels indicated just that. It was finally determined that Cameron died as a result of SUDEP, or sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. A diagnosis is only made when a person with known epilepsy dies without any conclusive cause found. Nobody knows exactly how this causes death, but it's theorized that it interrupts breathing while asleep. The only light that I can offer is that he did die peacefully. There are zero indications that he ever woke up.